Is there a difference between advice I'm hearing about raising angel investment dollars in the Midwest versus on the coasts? This panel has the answer to that exact question.
All right, so I have now raised a lot of money on both the West Coast and in the Midwest, and it is incredibly different. It's two different sciences, and I know you've raised money on both sides, you've raised money on both sides, including right here in Kansas City. So what are the main differences between raising money in a place like Kansas City versus raising money in somewhere like Los Angeles or San Francisco?
My best analogy is everything that you think about the Midwest as compared to the coasts is also analogous to raising money. So people are friendlier in the Midwest, right? People are more helpful in the Midwest. At least those are the stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
So when I lived on the coast, I was general counsel for a private equity firm. We looked at investments differently. Certainly looked at investments differently than we look. Than I see people looking at investments here in Kansas City or in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Usually on the coast, you're dealing with less personal interaction, meaning that in the Midwest, it seems as if there's a more, like, if you can touch it and you can feel it and get to know people, and there's more of a personal, there's more personality involved in investing in the Midwest. Whereas on the coast, you deal with pretty straight line, hardcore. What are your sales?
Cold
what's your
hard
revenue?
Facts. Cold hard facts.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. The other thing I would throw in my experience, like with the West Coast and East Coast people too, for that matter, is, and we're seeing it. These barriers come down a little bit in the Midwest, but that is exposure to new ideas. They see a wider range of ideas because the creative thinking. It's not saying we're not creative in the Midwest, but the creative thinking, because there's 30 million people live in California, there's going to be more thinkers that think creatively, right? Yeah. And so that exposure to that, and also the avenues to introduce people to that are much more there. So, like for your firm, if you have enough people out there feeling the marketplace, you're going to find all kinds of new stuff, and it's going to be different stuff. Here, we've had less exposure to that. It's much better now than it was, like, take 5 years ago. You couldn't find a dollar for this kind of stuff. Now you've got a predisposition to think about it.
But we can leverage some of that too, right? Like if people in the Midwest like the personalities and want to meet the people, and they're more apt to suggest other meetings and to referrals, then we should leverage that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is my own personal take on this thing. So when I was sitting in on an interview session where the guy was pitching his program, and another guy across the room said to me, he's like, well, the guy out in Silicon Valley put $2.6 million into this deal. And I had enough questions. I said, well, let him pull out his checkbook and do it. If he's that confident, that's great. It's a Kansas City company. Put your $2.6 million in there, and we'll see where it goes. I'm not that comfortable with it.
Well, you just brought up a really good point. The value of a company that's at this stage of business is whatever someone is willing to pay for it.
That's right.
And so you have to be really careful that I'm not saying that it's not educational to read TechCrunch. But if all we do is read a bunch of stories about companies that are raising money at certain bouts of traction and at very high valuations, you can't take that to Kansas City. You have to understand that your valuation is going to be lower here because the cost of living is lower and things are more inexpensive.
Yeah, and I think that there's been a shift. So when I moved out to California a few years ago and then moved back, I was really shocked to see this new entrepreneurial movement that had been going on in Kansas City for a while, but I think while I was gone, at least in the past 3 or 4 years, it's really picked up.
We wanted to surprise you.
Yeah, thank you.
We did it for you.
Appreciate it. It's like a welcome.
We had a big red curtain, and it was like, here comes John.
Yeah. But so I think a lot of the stereotypes that we talk about in regards to East Coast, West Coast investors as compared to the Midwest, I think a lot of that has been removed, because people, I think, are seeing that there are companies in Kansas City that are just as technical, just as creative, just as innovative as companies on either coast.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what, to verify that, I went and saw the State Department a couple years ago and said, hey, if you want to talk about entrepreneurship, when you bring trade delegations, you should come to Kansas City because the Kauffman Foundation's there, and this is going on, this movement's going on. And last year, 39 countries came here to talk about entrepreneurship and development of programs like that. And so that speaks highly of what the experience is for East Coast people thinking about us. They're sending people here now. And by the way, the surveys have come back from those countries is that Kansas City is the second favorite stop that they have of every place they go that the State Department offers.
I'm proud to be part of that community that's done that, and it's pretty cool. And the other thing that I think is that some of our better entrepreneurs are really starting to be successful at is a venture capitalist and an angel is the quintessential capitalist. They don't care where you live. They want to be involved, and you got to get them a way to be involved. But the internet has flattened the world. Why can't you build an awesome business in Kansas City and raise money from someone in St. Louis or Milwaukee or San Francisco, have an office there, fly out there regularly, whatever you got to do. But the barriers to entry to pitch to big venture capitalists and angels is smaller than it's ever been. One of the things that we bring to the table is that our money, California money spent on Kansas City companies goes further.
That's a great point.
And also when they're buying in, they can buy more of the company because the valuation should indeed be lower than it is in California.
Right.